When you have to shoot, don't talk.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another Trap House podcast. My name's Justin Jett. Great guest today with us, Stu Miller of Coon Creek Outdoors. He's going to sit down here with me and Charlie, and we're just going to talk about pretty much how he got started in this whole thing. If you don't know who Stu is, you might want to hop on YouTube, check out Coon Creek Outdoors, and start surfing through all those videos. He's got a lot, very educational, straight to the point, great trapper, great fur handler. So he's a good source to learn from if you're out there trying to learn something online in the trapping world. But before we talk to Stu, we got to give it up to our sponsors. We got Top Lot Stretcher Company with us. Their website is toplotstretcherco.com, and they have an adjustable stretcher that we're really fans of here. And they got trapping supplies, DVDs, all kinds of different stuff on their website. They got a really nice, clean-cut website. It's easy to navigate. So head on over there at toplotstretcherco.com. Also, Weeby Knives. Their website is weebyknives.com. Whether you're in the fur shed, they got a selection of fleshing knives to choose from. They got skinning knives if you're out in the field, fillet knives. They got all kinds of stuff in there. Also, another well put together website, easy to navigate. Check them out, weebyknives.com. And we have J3 Outdoors with us, j3o.com, maker of the Hags bracket and spring clip. Jeff Haggerty makes a great product, puts a lot out there, makes basically life a lot easier on the trap line, especially if you're a water trapper. I mean, everything from bait holders to spring clips, tail hooks, the universal lock I think is real slick. If you're a beaver trapper, the beaver rod ends are really nice and handy to have. So check out j3o.com. And they also have some coffee out there, Trapline Coffee. If you're a coffee drinker, you need something to get you going before you start your trap line, they got 3 different kinds there: a Trapline blend, a Kodiak blend, cherry red blend. And check them out at traplinecoffee.com. And last but not least, home of the top dog predator bait at Jet Fuel Predator Lure, HoosierTrapperSupply.com. We got everything you need from trapping to deer scent. And we also have the Show Us Your Bottle photo contest going on right now. If you don't know about that, you might want to jump on the website. There's a link on the homepage. Basically, if you're using our lure, bait, or urine, snap a picture of you and your successful catch, and that will put you in a drawing to win a $100 gift card to Hoosier Trapper Supply. So head over there and check it out. I think I've covered everything. This is getting a little too long here. Let's go talk to Stu, and thanks for joining us. All right, welcome back to another Trap House podcast. Great guest with us today, Stu Miller of Coon Creek Outdoors. First time on, so we're going to probably start from the beginning, how he even got started in all this, and kind of go from there. So welcome to the show, man.
Appreciate it. No, this is cool.
So how'd you get started in trapping to begin with? Like, kind of grew up with it in the family, or just something you found interested in?
No, I've told this story a couple of times, but we didn't have any trapping that went on around, at least my generation. There was trapping that went on in the 80s whenever the fur boom, and then it just died out. Where I grew up, it was deer hunting. That's what you did, was you deer hunted. And, I'd always dabbled in it whenever I was younger. Everybody wants to try to set a trap, or, and I had live traps, of course, different things like that. And the biggest reason I got into trapping was at home we have shotgun season. We'd shotgun hunt, and, so you're limited with your yardage, with the shotgun. And so I got into bow hunting, because that was a little bit more skill involved, so did the deer hunting with the recurve compound, shotgun. And then it was right about the time, I guess, I was, I don't know, before I had my driver's license or so, but you kind of get into where you doing things on your own. And muzzleloaders, the inline muzzleloaders, they had just really become popular, and you could really reach out and touch a deer with, with a muzzleloader, compared to a shotgun anyway.
Right.
And So anyway, I saved up and I bought this inline muzzleloader, and I'm gonna shoot this deer at like 300 plus yards, and it's gonna be cool. So that's what I did that season. I set up everything and I shot this deer at like 3.25 out. I was over 300 yards. Shot this deer with a muzzleloader, and it was kind of like, all right, I've done it now. I shot a deer like 6-7 yards with a recurve. I shot a deer at 300 yards. Like the challenge is no longer there for me, right? And I was looking for something to challenge myself with, basically. And I had always got Fur Fish and Game magazine. That was the one that I had always got. And there was always, articles and stories and everything in the back, and then those big barn shots. And that's what I wanted to I was like, that's my next challenge. I want a barn shot like that, So that got me started into trapping, really. It wasn't anything other than I wanted a challenge. And those first few years were tough. they were tough. Like I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't have really anybody to teach me, because this was before the internet was really
right.
Available to anybody. So you just basically had books and magazines and just going out and failing a bunch of times, and that's really what I did. I just failed a whole bunch of times.
So you got the challenge you were looking for.
I got, and then some, right? Yeah. No, it was cool. We always had live traps. Everybody had live traps. You had the odd coon or whatever, that needed to be caught. And so I remember I got a hold of an old bunch of rusty footholds. And I actually picked them out of an antique shop, because you couldn't at that time, you couldn't go anywhere to buy them locally, and I didn't know what to order online, and it was really expensive and everything else. So I went to this old antique shop. They had this barrel of old rusty antique traps, which I'm sure that they weren't antique, but it was antique shop. And I remember I dumped it out this barrel. It was like a whiskey barrel. And I dumped out this barrel, and I spent like an hour in there rummaging through, and I found a bunch of these old rusty footholds, and I bought them. And I'm sure I paid way too much. The guy probably ripped me off. I don't remember what I paid for them, but it was way too much. And then I was going to be a trapper. I had my footholds, and I didn't catch anything for like 3 weeks. But I had that one live trap, and I always caught something in that live trap. and I remember because I was the only one doing it at the time, but I had buddies, I still remember I was sitting in buddy's garage and we were talking trapping. I still remember looking at it. I was like, man, if you want to be a trapper, you gotta have live traps. Like that's where it's at. Like you can catch stuff in live. If I could have all live traps, I'd be. But of course, just the logistics of it is just so skewed anyway. With price and hauling them around and everything. But yeah, I remember the first couple of years. I was a live trap guy because you put them out, you could catch something. And it was it just kind of snowballed from there. Obviously, like once you struggle hard enough, you're gonna figure something out, and then through the progression of it, start identifying different trails and making different sets. And this all started small. I started with like a lot of people. We didn't have muskrats or anything. Everybody says they start out with muskrats. I started out with coons and possums and stuff. And then. I remember the next year I bought a half a dozen dog proofs, and I set those, and I started having a little better success with the dog proofs. And I hate to admit and say like the dog proof changed my trapping, but I think what it did was it forced me to identify better locations, because I was catching. It's something if you just never have success, because then you don't really understand things. But whenever you actually start finding success, then you start kind of putting the puzzle pieces together. And so that half dozen of dog proofs, I caught a bunch of stuff, and then that kind of led me into being able to foothold trap better, which led into the coyote trapping. And then, 4 or 5 years down the road from that was where I started catching a lot of fur. There was some money in it too back then, so I was actually able to pay for my hobby and pay for all my traps. That's one cool thing. Like all my traps were all paid for by the fur that I caught with them. And then of course you start selling them. What are you going to do with all this stuff? You start having a couple hundred pieces of fur, and you skin them. And we'd always skin stuff because we'd always ran coonhounds. For as long as I can remember, we'd always ran coonhounds. So we'd always skin them, but we'd never put them up per se. So then I got into that. Now then that took over the fur handling because I love the fur handling side of it, and yeah, that was cool. That kind of snowballed from there, and that's the rest is history basically.
Yeah.
Started the fur handling deal, and I got pretty proficient at that. I felt like, and I mean I'd been trapping for I've been trapping for several years before the whole YouTube deal came up. Which, I don't want to lead into another question, but that everybody always asks why did I start YouTube, and YouTube started because I was sitting at the NAFA truck, and there was this guy came up, and he had this bag of red fox, and it was his first. And like red fox at home are pretty rare. I mean, like and this was, and he didn't have a bag actually. He just brought them up. They weren't in like a NAFA bag. It was his first time selling, and these things were just butchered.
Terrible.
and I was, man, that's like, he had more red fox than I did, and I was like, oh man.
You're like, what a waste.
Yeah, it was like heartbreaking because, man, I could do something with those. And actually, if you look back on whenever I started my channel, the date I created my channel, that was the NAFA drop-off. Actually, that day. I went home that evening and I started a YouTube channel. And those were my videos, were fur handling. Mm-hmm. And, I always get questions on it because, I mean, I may have a large YouTube channel, but I am by no means like the best trapper or anything else. I've been doing it for a while. And the fur handling is really what I started on because it was accessible to people. It wasn't accessible to me. Maybe you guys remember, but NAFA actually put out a DVD called Professional Fur Handling. And it would cost $20. And they didn't promote it very well.
No, they didn't.
Like, they should have promoted it very well because that was an excellent DVD. The guys they had handling that fur did an awesome job. And I had bought that DVD several years before that. And because you could buy it. They didn't give it to you.
Right.
You actually had to buy it. And basically, my fur handling series, which I attribute a lot to the growth of my channel, was basically me more or less copying or showing and breaking down fur handling in a way that NAFA DVD did, because they broke it down into 3 steps and they did an awesome job. And I kind of mimicked that, so to speak, and I put it out there for everybody to see for free. That's the cool thing about YouTube is you're getting a free education basically,
right?
And that led into everything else. I mean, that's kind of my backstory on that. I mean, the rest is history, from here. But no, that's kind of how I got started into trapping, and then the progression which led into YouTube. So
so you started what, 81 roughly, or 2001?
Yeah, 2001, 2002.
Okay.
How old are you?
I'm 32.
Okay.
So we saw some pretty good years really in the fur market since then. I mean, it's been obviously up and down, but
those 2010, 11 through 14. I mean, those were years that I was making money on fur.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was fortunate enough that I've always been the kind of guy, like, I want my hobbies to pay for myself, pay for themselves. And I was able to buy traps. I mean, at that time, I don't know how many traps exactly I was running before the fur boom, but it definitely helped me and, boosted my count. But I remember, you could buy a dozen 1.5s for $50.
right.
You could catch 2 coons at that time. I mean, I was selling coons for $25 finished,
right.
$24, $25 finished. So 2 coons paid for that dozen of traps.
Right.
And, that's where my progression went to. I'd always put up on wire. And I had never washed my fur before that. So those years really helped me out as far as kind of perfecting, if you want to call it, the trade basically. I went to wood during those years. I made that transition to wood during those high dollar years just for the uniformity of it. I started washing my fur. Everybody else questions my washing the fur. So Southern Illinois coon are not the best coon, but whenever you start having several years of selling them and you can actually see a difference in price, of washing out a dirty muddy coon and putting them up versus just leaving it muddy. That's why I started doing it.
Sure.
It was because I was selling to the fur trade, and I mean that's where I kind of perfected that craft, if you want to call it that. I don't want to use the word perfect because I'm not perfect by any means, but that was a cool time. I'm glad I got to experience that quick ramp and that high, because I learned a lot through that. So
yeah, I mean, I'd like to believe that we're going to see that again at some point, but who knows?
Who knows?
I'd like to see it better than it is right now, which is about as bad as it can get.
I would think.
As far as the full market,
$2 and $3 coyotes are not great.
Yeah, if assuming you can sell them.
Yeah.
So and somebody, we had done a podcast with Guy Gronwald, and I mean, he is not really established any eastern routes east of Illinois because he doesn't have a use or a need for those raccoons or those coyotes. So it's kind of put him in a dilemma. He could definitely use the bobcats, otters, and beaver for sure, but all that other stuff is kind of what everybody likes to catch. So is what we have the most numbers of. So at this point, I know you're not going to change your perspective, but what do you think about the idea when the market's like this and you're still selling fur? Does it really pay to? I mean, you still need to do a decent job putting it up, but I don't know that it needs to be as pristine as it was in 2013.
No, and actually I have changed my way that I put up fur. For the most part, like during that time, I was washing every single critter that I had. I was getting it, and some guys tumble. I always just washed it. It just went with the rhythm that I had of putting up fur. And I've gone to a less quantity of fur, more quality of fur. So I find myself running a lot more dryland sets than I did back then, just so I don't have to deal with the muddy critters. If they're not super muddy, I'm not washing them out anymore, just because of the markets that I've found. I used to pleat my tails. I don't know if that's kind of one of those deals. I don't know if it made a difference or not, but to me it looked better, and I pleated my tails. I'm no longer doing that. I just pin them and let them go. Just little things like that. I still put everything up on wood because there's still a pride thing.
Sure.
There's still a pride.
Yeah.
I mean, I take pride in that, and but yeah, there are a few things that I've kind of, I don't want to say slipped on, but I mean just changed, just because you're selling to a different market now, or at least I am. I'm not selling to the fur trade market. I'm selling to the craft market or the tan market. Well, if you're going to tan the thing anyway, right off the bat, who cares if that tail's pleated? So
and you don't have to turn coyotes first sight out or anything like that.
Everything that I tan is pretty much. I guess I'm glad you said coyotes. So like all my coyotes this year, I'm skinning with all the feet on. I'm still. So I would remove ear cartilage before. Now I'm splitting the ears on all my coyotes that way, because I like that look of having that pronounced ear and a tanned pelt. So I'm splitting the ears all the way, not removing the cartilage.
You're turning them inside out.
Turning them completely inside out and leaving the cartilage in. And then leaving all 4 feet on for, wall hangers and decorative things like that. So yeah, a few things definitely have changed. I mean, I think by the time you split that ear and skin out them feet, you don't really save any time versus washing them and pleating and everything else. But yeah, there are subtle differences that I've kind of developed over the last couple of years, just with the different markets. So
right. I think considering, and this is a little outside but considering the beaver market, and that's probably the number one demand item. I mean, realistically, and that's going to available in any quantities as compared to otter and bobcat. And the difference that Groenwald will pay between green and put up, I mean, just skinning them and folding them flat and freezing them is probably makes the most sense. Because
there was not one put up beaver that I saw. That was at the truck the other day whenever he put up that video. So, and I don't think the price, like you said, I don't think the price would have changed.
I think it's pretty much the same. Because they're super set up with the equipment to put those beavers up.
Well, and they have their way anyway. I mean,
right.
So
he was even advertising a year or two ago that he wanted some that were actually cut up the back.
I remember that. So it had a real specific area that he was wanting the pelts from. But yeah,
Yeah. Now, let me reiterate: if you guys are gonna don't skin anything out the back, check with him. I think that was kind of a special deal. So
yeah, that was a real. I remember whenever he said that, he had like real specifics on the area that he wanted.
Yeah, and you only need like 2,000 or something.
Yeah,
so.
But I mean that's cool that people are finding different markets. You know.
Right.
Yeah. No, I like. And another thing, you know, like I said, my trapping, at least in the last few years, has went more to quality over quantity. I mean, it was cool back in, you know, kind of that fur boom. I mean, I remember a couple of years that I legitimately paid for all my gas for my trap line through the year with selling possums. Mm-hmm. I mean, like you know, I was averaging. They didn't give out a top lot award, but I still have a screenshot of I had a $12 possum at NAFA. You know? But I mean, I averaged like $6-7 for these things, which was, you know, more than what coons are going for now. And it was more of a quantity over quality. The last few years, I've released, you know, almost as much as I've kept because there's no need to skin that small coon or that small possum. You know, skunks, obviously, I've taken everything, you know, just because, you know, they are worth most money in my area. But yeah, I mean, I've also developed a skull market, you know, and these are things that I really didn't do back in the day because it was easier just to go trap a bunch of coons and, you know, versus now you're having to really diversify. So,
you take beavers and skunks.
Yeah.
And you've got all the byproducts is worth as much as the skin, if not more.
At least, yeah, every bit of it.
Between, you know, like beavers, you can sell the skull, you can sell the meat, sell the castor, sell the oil sacs, and sell the skin.
Yeah.
Whereas a skunk, the essence, the glands, the fat, the skull, the skin. So, I mean, there's a lot there.
There's a lot there. You know, you can go out and instead of trapping 20 coon, you can trap, you know, 4 skunks and end up with a better day, you know. So.
I mean, there's a limited number of bobcats, and really they're the same way, too. You can sell the skull, you can sell the meat, you can sell the glands if you can get enough put together versus the skin. So, I mean, some of this stuff does have quite a byproduct market to it. So, for those of you that are looking for some ways to increase your income,
well, there's still ways. I mean, just because you can't sell the fur, there's definitely ways to. And I don't want to throw make money out there, but definitely get rid of your fur. You know, I mean, because to me, and this is something that I've mentioned multiple times, but like. There is an imbalance in population that I am seeing at home anyway. Mm-hmm. You know, there's nobody hunting and trapping these predators anymore, but everybody is still going out to the woods, deer and turkey hunting.
Right.
And so that has kind of been, I guess, not really my focus, but I've become way more aware of it just in the past few years because of the population. I mean, you go scan a cornfield at night now, and there's just eyes shining at you everywhere, you know. And eventually, you know, you're going to have a problem if you continue to take out of one population and not the other, you know.
Right.
Either Mother Nature's going to come in and that's going to be ugly, or, you know, you're going to start really seeing a decrease in other populations just because of, you know, predation and nest raiding and just everything in general. So. Right.
Yeah, there's this idea, guys don't like the idea of just going out killing stuff for the sake of killing stuff, but there is a benefit to this management for sure. It definitely keeps the remaining animals healthier, and keeps the balance in place, and as you said, may help protect some turkeys and
I think
deer fawns and that kind of thing.
South Dakota, which Illinois is so broke, we don't get studies like that, but South Dakota, if you look into the studies that they've done, I think they have really did an awesome job of kind of putting into perspective what the nest raiders, ground, you know, predators, what they have done to their waterfowl population. And I mean, there is a really cool correlation between high waterfowl numbers and high fur prices. Mm-hmm. I mean, that really drove a lot, and they've done all these studies, you know, and that's why now they're having these early seasons to try to help out all these birds, you know, and waterfowl, pheasants, quail, you know, everything, you know. So
I think Delta waterfowl was kind of one of the original drivers behind some of that too. You know, I'm not saying that biologists in South Dakota weren't aware of that, but
I think it's cool. I get a kick out of reading those studies and seeing, you know. there really is an impact, you know.
Right. So we didn't really even mention, for those of you that are living in a cave, Stu's YouTube channel is Coon Creek Outdoors. So if you haven't checked it out, be sure to check it out. He's, as far as I know, the largest trapping YouTube page there is on the planet. So we got. I'm just sitting here thinking we never even said that. So
Well, I did actually.
Did you? Okay.
Charlie, come on.
I was asleep. Well, I'm reminding everyone. I guess I was living in a cave at that point. So
No.
okay.
No, I mean, obviously it's a great channel. I've watched several videos myself, and I think what it is you're just good at just laying it out there and explaining it, you know, nice and easy to everybody.
Well,
That's what everybody wants.
So, and I get a lot of questions on this, and I think obviously I've been doing this for a long time. That takes, you know, that, but I focus more on the educational side of it. And then obviously you got to have entertainment, but you know, people, at least in my mind, I mean, I'm, you know, I'm an ugly guy that I stutter through my words. Like there's nothing appealing about me. But if you can educate somebody and get them, you know, to kind of understand what your perspective is on stuff, I feel like that is what draws an audience. So, and then if you could throw a little bit of entertainment in there, that's cool. But in my mind, I've kind of built my channel over the years on the educational side of it, and I've always tried to be real. You know, it's not. I don't try to put stuff out there that I don't know a lot about. You know, and I don't want to brag on myself, or you know, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, I try to put stuff out there that I'm fairly proficient at. So, and I think that comes into play. I think you can see that through a video. You know, if you've got some people, and you know, if they've just watched a video or read a book and they went out and did it for the first time, to me, that's not what I want to see. You know, I would like to see somebody that knows what they're talking about, and I think that can come through. I get a lot of questions on that all the time, but
And you're the same person on camera as off camera.
well, yeah, I mean, hopefully, hopefully. No, I try to be. I try not to BS my way through anything, because you know I learned a long time ago, and obviously, you know, this is going into my 10th or 11th year doing this. You can't lie if you're going through this for this long. You know, you can only lie for so long, and then you're trying to cover up a lie or this, that, and the other. So you might as well just be honest with the folks and lay it out. Here I am. This is me. These are my problems. Whatever. You know,
This is my problem.
deal with it. You know. So
Yeah, I know what you mean. Trying to just stay in the lane of the things you know. But when you do go off and say something about a different topic, at least you're going to tell them, like, hey, this is my first time doing this.
And it's,
you know,
it's cool.
This is just what happened, and this is how I'm doing it, and see if it works. So it's more like a trial and error, and people can follow along.
Yeah, but don't go out there and say, oh, I'm an expert at this, you know, then it'd be
exactly.
blatantly apparent, you know. So I don't know. Like I said, I've been doing this 10 years now. I've got, I don't know, pushing 400 videos up on YouTube. So yeah, I mean, it's been fun. There's a reason that I still do it, you know. I mean, it's a challenge for sure. And no, it's been exciting. I've met awesome people. I mean, I met you guys right here. I'm sitting right here because of YouTube. You know, that the experiences and the different things I've been able to, you know, do through YouTube has been awesome. So it's been fun.
So what's the bigger challenge now? Coming up with content for YouTube or trapping?
100% YouTube.
That's why you're doing it. You want that challenge still.
I guess so. Well, you know, the cool thing about the trapping side and YouTube is I've had videos out there that are 8-9 years old, and to me they are still just as relevant today as they were whenever I uploaded them.
Right.
The other cool thing is I've been doing this for so long. I've seen a lot of people come and go. You know, you'll have a lot of people that try trapping, and then they either figure out it just takes up too much time, maybe they don't like it, whatever, and then they leave. But you've always got a new influx of people trying it.
Right.
So as much as I hate to say it, a lot of the videos you could almost remake, and you'll find that new audience, you know, that maybe hasn't seen the older videos or things like that. And for me at least, I've been doing this for so long that I've always said this with trapping. The trapping thing is so cool because you're never going to get it just right. You know, you're always going to change. And that's how I am. I mean, I don't think I've done the exact same thing every year, 2 years in a row. Mm-hmm. So by putting that stuff out there on YouTube, people can see the changes that I've made, mm-hmm. you know, and I think that's cool. At least for me, I like to look back and say, okay, 5 years ago I did this, and yes, I still caught fur. But now I'm doing something that I'm tweaking it, doing stuff a little bit, and I'm still catching fur. Right. So it all works, and I think that's kind of cool, you know, to be able to go back and reminisce, if you will, you know, and see those subtle changes. Because just because I do something, you guys can do the exact same thing and maybe not have success, or you can do something totally different and have great success. Mm-hmm. You know, there's not really one right way to do this, and the trapping thing, that's what's cool. I mean, I've always said that before. That's the coolest part, is that you are going out into an area that this animal knows better than you ever will, and you are trying to get this critter, for the most part, to step on the top of a soda can. Like, that's hard.
Right.
This thing can go anywhere you want, and you're trying to trick him in his own house. I mean, it's, you know, it's no different than he coming into, you know, your house, you know, and moving something. You're going to figure it out, you know, and I'm trying to trick you on it. So
right.
I think that's cool. I really enjoy that about the trapping thing. So
yeah, get that natural progression, and you've got it recorded. You've got it documented.
Yeah, that you know, a lot of this stuff is for me. It's not for the, you know, it's something that I can go back and watch, you know. So no, I think it's cool. It's kind of documenting what has turned into you know, 3 to 4 months a year. This is what I live for, you know, now. So
right. I think on YouTube, a lot of people have come and gone too. As far as channels, and you got to sort through them, and obviously the mainstay channel like yours that's been around for 11 years, whatever.
Well, you guys have been around for just as long,
but it's legit. I mean, you know, it's not, you weren't, you know, and people know that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's part of why we get the same recurring questions all the time.
It's because of that influx of those new people.
And I mean, you know, the trapping thing. So I have access to analytics basically on my page, and it kind of shows age demographic. And it's very interesting whenever you start looking at that, because your age demographics or trapping are kind of split. You'll have that kind of, you know, teens to early 20s age demographic, mm-hmm. and then, you know, there'll kind of be a lull through that, you know, 30s, 40s, and then it'll pick back up again. Mm-hmm. And you start talking to people, and, you know, trapping is one of those things that it takes so much time and so much mm-hmm. dedication. You know, it's not like deer hunting where you can just go, I'll just go hunting today and I'll go sit out in the woods. No, if you're trapping, you are dedicated to that. You're married to that sport, because you're having to go out there, check those traps every single day, if it's rainy, weather, windy, whatever. And so I think you see that difference in age demographic, because you've got the guys that maybe haven't started a family yet. The younger guys are still into it. That's where I was going with,
yep. And it's called life.
It's called, you know, life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And so you have that kind of early young life, you know, that they get into it, and they have a family and kids and everything else, and it takes, you know, priority, obviously. And then once kids get out and I'm going to get back into this, what I enjoyed. So I always find that kind of interesting, you know, mm-hmm. the age demographic. But
yeah, and I think that's spot on.
Yeah, I think, I mean,
you see it all the time, especially when in the older group, when people retire.
Yeah.
I got more time now. I'm getting back out in the woods. I used to do this when I was a kid, and I miss it.
And that's what you get a lot of people, because so much has changed.
Yeah.
You know, in that time frame where they started, you know, just the techniques, and, you know, even just the way you put up fur and sell it and market it. So yeah, you're really advertising the two really different age groups,
right.
You know.
I always think it was funny when somebody will call up on the phone at the shop, and they'll tell you, it's like, I'm 82 years old or whatever, and I've been watching you guys on YouTube, you know, and it's like, it's pretty cool to think that you got these old guys that are probably pretty challenged by technology, but they're still figuring it out how to do that. They may not want to place an order on a website, but they'll watch.
Yeah, they want that mail order.
They'll watch us on YouTube, so which is pretty cool.
Send me a catalog, I'll write in the order. So you spoke about, you know, opportunities with the channel, and how, you know, how it's been great to meet all these people. You had a pretty cool experience being on the Meat Eater podcast. Can you talk about that a little bit? Meeting Steve Ranella and those guys, because obviously we're fans. We watch, listen to the show and watch the show.
No, Meat Eater was cool. And everybody always asks, why do I get, what was so special about me? And I have absolutely no idea, why. But no, it was very cool. And the Meat Eater podcast was cool because I had the opportunity to spend quite a little bit of time with Steve, and he is exactly the same person that you see on camera, off camera, which I thought was really, really cool. I've been around some people and they are different, and I thought that was really, really cool to be around somebody in that, that has that much influence on people, that's exactly the same person off camera. But yeah, it was really cool because Steve is super, I don't know, kind of scientific, I guess would be the proper, I don't really know how to put, but I mean, it puts a lot of thought into it, because he's a very smart individual, and he's got a lot of contacts. So, I mean, he can really, really analyze a situation. So that was something running around and being able to track with him that I mean, I guess I really hadn't thought about, he was pointing out things that I really hadn't thought about, just as far as, a lot of data, tracking collars, and he has the opportunity to speak with a bunch of biologists and stuff, and just little things like this that I thought was super cool. But no, I think it's awesome that somebody like Ranella and Meat Eater are for trapping and pushing trapping, because it was an awesome experience for me. I was able to go out and kind of show some fur handling skills to those guys, and hopefully benefit them. But no, I really enjoyed it. It was super cool, and to see somebody who's got that much influence over people, who's really promoting trapping, I don't know, it's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know, did I veer off there? I felt like I veered off.
No.
It was really cool. It was an awesome experience, something that I'll never forget. So I enjoyed that.
I think it's safe to say with what Steve's done with Meat Eater, of course, what the show is really ultimately about is like the harvest of an animal and how to prep it and eat it. But he, with his audience, I think you could pretty much say he's done more for the trapping community than anything else out there.
Yeah,
in recent years, for sure.
Yeah, because he does bring it in to the show every now and then, and having guys like you on there shed some light on some things where the average hunter might not even see at all.
Yeah, and
so it's great.
I think it's super cool, because I don't know. I've got this. I'll tell a story here quick, because I think this is super cool to see. So a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to go to the NTA in Iowa, and Bill Duke actually, he was flying up in his plane, right? And he was going kind of right by where I live, and he invited me to go. He asked me, he said, are you going to go? And I said, no, it's like 14 hours. I can't swing it. He goes, well, if you want, fly up in my plane. I was like, oh yeah. And mind you, I was what, 30 years? I had never flown in a plane in my life, So this was super. I was checking a bunch of stuff off my bucket list, I'm like, I'm gonna fly. I'm gonna go to the NTA. Anyway,
does he have a license or?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Real nice plane. No handles in it, by the way. No handles in it. So anyway, he picks me up at the airport, and he's got this co-pilot with him. And it turns out it was just this young kid, and Bill was part of this program where you basically take up-and-coming pilots who need hours, similar like driving license, and you can take them and they can get their hours. I remember because we flew before daylight, so we had some dark hours, different things like that. Anyway, I just assumed that Bill and this kid had talked and knew each other, and it's like I was wrong, by the way. And so I just assumed, because we're in this tiny little, Cessna plane, and it was like a 4-hour flight, and, we're talking, and then we hit turbulence, and then we fall out of the sky like 30 feet, and I'm looking for handles to grab onto, and there is none, by the way, in those planes. It's just a round bubble, so I was freaked out.
And I don't blame you.
I was, and then I look forward, and them guys, they're just like nothing happened, and I'm sitting there going, there's no handle in this stupid little bubble that I'm in. And so anyway,
it's been a good life.
Yeah. I'm looking down, like, the ground's getting close. But no, it was super cool experience. But So we fly up, and the whole time I'm thinking this guy knows who Bill Duke is. Turns out he didn't. So we land at the airport, and a couple other guys came and picked us up, and we drive to the convention center there. And this was in Iowa, and it was August, so it was
like 95 degrees.
95 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And you can only imagine whenever you walked into that first building, all the wonderful smells that hit you.
Right.
And like I said, I talked with this kid, and this kid, he was probably 25 years old or so, and he was from Chicago.
He had no clue.
And he had absolutely no clue. And you could tell whenever that first wave of skunk essence hit him, like he was like, what did I walk into? And the whole time, like I said, I feel, looking back, I'm like, why didn't we talk about where we were going? But anyway, I looked at this kid, and I was like, do you know who you flew up here with, or where you're at? He goes, I have no idea.
That's funny.
I'm like, well, there may be a problem there. We'll discuss later. Anyway, so this kid, he did not even know that trapping even existed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cool. So we walked in, and I mean, he is just, jaw to the floor, eyes wide open, holding his nose. It was just. So anyway, I started telling. I was like, okay, you just flew up with Bill Duke. He's the owner of a trap company, and for
a big trap company.
A big trap, like one of the largest trap companies. You were anyway. And I said, this is what he does. Is he sells traps. And whenever I said traps, and you could see in this kid's eyes that it was like the Disney bear trap, like
right.
that, and that's like. And he's like, so what are all these people here for? And I told him, I said, this is a convention. This is where people come to, and kind of explain those things. And so we walked into the convention, and there was Duke's booth there, and they've got a booth with all their traps. And he's looking at them, and kind of funny. I was like, so have you ever seen one of these? And he said, no. And I said, so do you understand how they work? And he said, yeah, break your leg, cut your hand.
Chop their leg off.
And that's what he, assumed. And I did. I grabbed a number 3 off the display there, and I set it, and I stuck my hand in it. And I wiggled my fingers at him. I was like, this is what trapping is about. And it was so cool because for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, I walked this kid around. I call him kid because he was just a few years younger than me. Anyway, I walked this. I can do that. I'm old enough now. But anyway, I walked this guy around, and we covered that whole convention, and I basically gave him just a crash course on trapping and fur handling and just the whole industry in general. And it was super cool. I'd never been around anybody that was, that ignorant to trapping.
Right.
I don't say that in a negative way, but he just didn't know.
If you don't know, you don't know.
He just didn't know that this existed. And what he did know of it was very skewed and bad, And we got, and like I said, we spent, quite a little time walking around. We sat down and had lunch, and I was like, so what do you think of all this? And he looked at me, he goes, I honestly will never use anything I just learned ever again. He said, I'm going to have to throw away my clothes whenever I get back. But he said, I am so glad that I experienced this. He said, whenever I go back, I'll be able to tell people, and
right.
if I ever come to this position and, see a trap or do something similar, he's like, I really, this was a very cool experience to me to be able to see this. And to me, that just stands out because I think, moving forward, and that's why I try to push education because, for the most part, it's not the people that are doing it that you're trying to teach. A lot of it's the people that don't understand it that teach because those are the people that's going to hurt you worse, Right. So if you can show them, that this is a good thing. We got a renewable resource here. We're not hunting feet. We're not breaking bones here. We're doing this in a positive light.
No endangered species. Everything's
100% by the book, legal.
And I mean, these are the people that if you can educate these people, and I always say that, and I don't say that in a negative way, but you're trying to educate the uneducated, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but and I've used this reference before. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm ignorant and I'm uneducated in rocket science, Same as people are, uneducated in trapping. But if you educate them about it and you teach them different things, these are the people that's going to keep this this sport alive, you know. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my story. That was my first time as far as ever being around somebody that was completely new to it, and I think it was cool. I had an awesome time, and I think I really did make an impact on the guys. So
Well, and that's and
That's huge.
And then it's that idea that everybody's like 5 people away from knowing everybody in the world.
yeah,
So this guy's going to go home, and whenever that subject comes up,
Yeah.
he's going to have a positive explanation of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's all.
He
That's
never
a-
has to trap again as
No,
long
I
as
mean,
he
he'll
sees
never-
us in a better light than
Yeah.
we did before.
And I say it all the
Worth
time is this idea of if you can expose people to this, then that takes away the
it
negative.
just takes down that curtain and
Yeah.
it just opens up, you know,
Yeah.
what it really is about, you know.
Right.
Because I mean, for the most part, everybody is so skewed on their
Right.
on their thought process of what this is, just because of what the media or
Right.
everybody in general has portrayed this as, So.
Right, exactly. So did he fly home with you guys then too?
Yes.
So I mean, he had to spend the 3 days there or whatever it was.
We actually did that whole trip in one day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we left at like, I don't know, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We flew up there, spent the day, and then flew back.
Okay.
So it was a very long day.
That is a long. I think that was actually the first time I ever met you. Was there?
Was that Iowa?
Yeah.
That was yeah.
So you were making quick rounds.
I were covering a lot of ground quick that day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was out of the booth and I came back. He's like, "Hey, stupid Coon, why did I get to meet the guy? Where'd he go?"
So and for those of you that have never been to a trappers convention, and it really doesn't matter if it's hot or not. There's quite a smell to them because all the lure you can't contain them. So
Yeah.
and it's
Skunk,
gonna hit you. Now you're not gonna have to burn your clothes or anything, but you may have to wash them.
Some people
Most trappers love that smell.
Oh,
When
yeah.
they building,
Yeah.
they know where they're at,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
feel like they're at home in their first shed.
skunk essence to me, like if you put like fresh skunk essence and sniff it, like it's a little potent. But that little hint of skunk essence, I've learned to really like it. And, and it's weird because like you'll start trapping season, you haven't smelled it in a long time, other than like roadkill or something. And by the end of season, you're like, I kind of missed that little bit. It's just there.
Yeah, once hit on the road and you're thinking, man, that was a good time.
Yeah, you reminisce through smells.
We were with Matt Bradaway last weekend on just doing a ride along with him and filming him, and of course he caught a skunk and the thing sprayed. He didn't have a syringe, so he shot it and it's spraying everywhere. And he goes and resets the trap, and of course he's walking in the, so we smelled skunk the rest of the day. But it was funny, just within a pretty short period of time, you don't even realize it's in the cab of the truck.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just, but of course everybody else does.
Yeah.
But
I had a work truck there for a while, and I had a guy riding with me, and I would always like, I mean and this was kind of back in the time where like I was veering for stuff, on the road. Like, I mean, it was worth it to like, you weren't veering away from it, you were veering towards it, you'd stop, pick up roadkill. I mean, let's pay for your gas for the day, and I remember I'd roll up to pick up this guy, and well, you caught a skunk last night, didn't you? Yep. I'll drive myself.
I'll drive myself.
I'll drive myself today. We don't have to ride together.
Well, this is a real short story. We won't go into detail, but to point out the fact that trappers love skunk smell is we know a person that spent time in prison that was a trapper, and when he got out, when he first smelled a skunk hit on the side of the road or whatever, he cried. Because it meant that much to him. Reminisced about all that stuff. It's just crazy.
And the other thing in recent years that's probably more odd was people would come in the shop and said that was their first tip that they had COVID because they could not smell skunk.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how many times we heard that over the past 2 years. That was they weren't symptomatic otherwise, but they would have their trapping lure and they could not smell
They
it
could.
at all. And they're just like, oh, that's probably
That's probably a sign.
That's wild.
so
we should. So what's going on for the rest of your season? Like, why are you in this part of the country? You're traveling through. You're doing something pretty cool. I think you should probably maybe mention that, and then what's your plans for the rest of the season?
Yeah. So obviously, been doing this so long. I'm always trying to come up with content, but also just involve different people. So with this being my 10th year doing it, I wanted to give back to the community. So this is the first year I've done this, and I'm on my way back from doing a giveaway. I was able to to give away, and I don't want this to sound bad, but I was able, I know how it sounds, but basically what I was able to do was choose 2 different people through a giveaway and then go and spend a couple of days and do kind of like a one-on-one class with them. So I was able to choose a adult youth. That's where I'm coming back from. I actually just got back. The guy's name was Willie. He had 4 young daughters, which was super cool. I just spent a couple of days with them, and we did some trapping, we did some fur handling, and the cool thing was, like, obviously I didn't know what I was getting into. This is the first time I've done it, but no, super cool to be able to kind of share, my passion for the hobbies to somebody. And Willie, with sharing his daughters, it was super cool to have him out there running around and just showing them a light, because Willie, although he's into trapping, he wasn't quite into the trapping quite as much as I am, so to kind of give him a different perspective. No, it was super cool. So yeah, we're doing giveaways, and that's where I'm coming back from now. I am also looking into so for the rest of the year, just to kind of, so obviously with the fur prices, I'm not trapping the quantity that I normally do, so I've kind of trapped what I need to, if you will, and I'm trying to, and I said it, I'm trying to fun trap basically this year. So like try different techniques and stuff. Like I've been setting a lot of traps on logs and crossover, like the old books, and just trying new things out, just fun stuff, because it doesn't, it's not money driven,
Right.
It's just going out and having a good time. I've got a couple of trips planned there where I'm gonna go trap on a river and kind of do like a spike tent camp, if you will, and do that. Not so much focused so much on the catching of the critters, but more on the experience of it.
Right.
If the weather permits and if I can swing it, I have always wanted to learn how to snare. In Illinois, we can't snare, and that has always been something that I've wanted to learn, because it's a skill like anything else, and I know I'm not good at it. So I hopefully through the rest of this year I'll be able to go on a couple of small trips and go to states that allow snaring, and I think it'd be cool, to be able to experience something that I've not been able to do in the past. So that's kind of my forward look for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Sounds cool. That's one thing too. We generally don't snare. I mean, here in Indiana, if you snare, you have to have written permission from the landowner, which is a bit of a. Some don't want to do that, and so we just kind of generally avoid it. And we are in a agricultural area, but we're also in a fairly high residential area, with that urban sprawl or whatever. So you always got to be concerned about someone's dog or whatever.
Sure.
So, and then when we go on the trips we take in the fall or in January and February, we're almost always on public ground, which is another concern with hunting dogs. So we just generally pretty much stay away from it. And it would be we did go up and run snares with Mark Stack, but it would be cool to just go someplace where you knew that you didn't have to be concerned about that other stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of like what you guys do. That's been one thing I've always admired, is you guys take those trips and experience new things, and so that's kind of where I'm at, kind of this year. Is, I mean, I don't want to say I've got it figured out at home, but like I want to try new things and try new places. So rather than just going hard for an entire season at home, I can break it up with these short trips, and try to re-educate myself, learn new things. And because I had the opportunity last year to go to Montana for the first time, and we didn't do a lot of snaring. It was a pretty quick run, and I mainly just did footholds because that's what I was comfortable with. We were there, we wanted to make a few catches. And I was very humbled by that. I mean, it was very humbling by that area, because honestly, in all the years I've trapped, I've never really trapped outside of my little home base. 100 miles from my house is kind of where, so it's all the same terrain. And being able to go out there to an area that was so different than my home ground, it was hard. It was, I mean, like I was trying to put everything in that I've learned for so many years, set on sign and follow the terrain and this, that, and the other, but there was a lot of differences in it.
And it's so massive.
It's so massive, and one thing that got me was the area that we were in. they just didn't get rain or weather, you know, really. So at home, come trapping season, it rained for the most part. This year's a little different with the drought, but for the most part, it rains once a week. So the sign that you're seeing is fairly fresh. Out there, they had like 1.5 inches of rain the entire year. So although you were seeing sign, that sign may be, you know, 3 weeks old. If you're in an area that it didn't get wind blown or you know, weathered, and that was difficult to go through and to differentiate, you know, between what was super fresh sign or you know, sign that may have been there for a month, because it kind of looks the same, honestly, you know. So you were looking more towards, you know, scat and, you know, what little bit of water, you know, that mud, and it was just really different. So, and it was super challenging. So that's kind of where I want to kind of push myself. And while the fur prices are low, I'll go out and challenge myself. You know, why not? You know. So
yeah, I definitely like the challenge of a new area that you've never been to before. That going in blind, you know, it's kind of cool. We ran into that in New Mexico with it's high desert, so it's at minimum semi-arid. I would say it was, and they'd been on a 10-year drought when we were there. So the sign, it was pretty hard to really pinpoint how old that sign really was, and it would maintain a fairly fresh look to it, you know. So, but.
Yeah, that was one thing that, like out there, you know, at home you're looking for draws and pinch points and crossover, and you're looking for the same thing out there. But we actually had snow the very last day, the day we pulled out there, and that's where it was like really eye-opening, you know, because it turned. I mean, where I was setting, there was sign, but like the cattle trails and the fence rows and the stuff, that's where the majority of the sign went. You know, it wasn't really. I was trying to set low areas, you know, kind of similar to what I said at home. And like I said, there was sign you could see because snow tells all, you know, and it just pisses you off. But no, out there it was really interesting. So I don't know. I've got kind of this in the back of my mind. It's like I want to come back. Like you know what I mean? Like I want to go back out there now because. You know, although we didn't catch like I wanted to, you know. So I've got this in the back. I'm going to get you this time. So
the redemption trip.
Yeah, really, I mean, it is. And just, you know, then like I said, the simple fact of learning a new technique, to me, that I find that super interesting. So
one thing on our bucket list is we want to go marten and fisher trap, and we would love to catch a mountain lion at some point, you know, which is not a fur animal, but it would still be cool to try. But I know we're
every year, all these years of getting involved trapping, I don't know what, 17 years, 18 years now. I don't know. Every year there's been something new that I've never done before.
Yeah.
So that's just keep it going, you know. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's funny you were talking about sign, and setting on sign is a great plan, but it doesn't always work.
No.
Because there's something like in Arkansas, it is, other than droppings on the road, it is very difficult to actually find sign.
Yeah.
Unless you can find a little wash along the edge of the road that we had a recent rain and there might be some cat tracks in there or something.
It's all gravel. And...
Yeah, I mean, in general, we see very little sign. So we're just setting on either past history locations or locations that just look like they make sense from the map or, you know, what you just think in your mind.
And you know, it's funny you bring that up because at least for me, I've always preached set on sign. And I mean, I think sign's a relative term, you know, whether you have actual footprints in the mud or scat or some, you know, something. But I've always preached that. And it's funny because just, you know, yesterday or the day before with the giveaway winners, we were out there and we were trapping his piece of property basically. So his 40 acres, and it was laid out really cool. You know, he had a creek and a back field and an agricultural area, but that's what we had to trap. So it wasn't like you could go through and cherry pick, you know, the best of the best. We had to pick the best spot on his property.
Right.
You know, which is a little challenging really, you know. But anyway, we started talking canine trapping and we started looking around and they were the same way as what we are back home. Drought, very little sign, you know, it's just in hard clay, you're not going to see a footprint, you know. I mean, it just... And we started looking around, and I said, you know, we want to make a coyote set. He wanted to, you know, see how I make my coyote sets and everything else. And we started looking around. I was like, I finally just told him after a long, I was like, this is the best area. And we looked, and he goes, but there's no sign. And he called me out on what I've been, you know what I mean? He's like, there is no sign. And I was like, and I had to stop. I was like, "You're right." And I mean, I've always preached set on sign, but he called me out on it. I said, so I had to kind of back up and say, "No, there is no sign, but let's look at this a little different way here." This is like the funnel, the draw of your property. This is a point, like past history, and it was really cool because like. He got me, but then at the same time, I was like, this is kind of where
this is still the sign.
This is still the sign. Like, if I had to pick one area in this piece of property, and then it was really cool because I said, let me show you what I'm talking about. And so I took my drone and I flew it up, and we got the aerial view, and you could see how everything came together and drew. And I said, this is. Of all the places you have to trap, this is still the one place. And
right.
We didn't catch anything. It was a one-night check on K9. Right. So, but
Did
no.
you leave them? Did he leave the trap there?
Yeah, we left.
They might catch something this week.
He left traps. Like I said, it was a lot of trail identification, and one of the cool things that he took away, at least he told me, was I knew we had one night to catch, and. Obviously we had the kids, so we wanted to catch anything, really, just see something. And I trap with a lot of dog proofs at home just because of the areas that I trap. I'm forced to trap that, but footholds are still like king. They're going to catch everything. And one thing this time of year, especially that I've learned is dog proofs are you're not always going to catch on dog proof. Right. They will walk by them, And so we did a lot of blind sets because we were trying to catch, and we ended up actually catching in the blind sets. And that was one thing that he said, wow, he said, I never really put that much, thought into the blind set, how effective they could be. A lot of people I think are under the impression you've got to have all these smells and baits and everything else. Well, you're catching an animal, and we didn't use conibear. We could have used, if we could have used conibears, we could have used that too, which is basically kind of a blind set. We blind set with footholds, but yeah, you're targeting an animal that doesn't have to be hungry, that doesn't have to be attracted to a smell. He just got to be just walking, and you can catch him. So that was kind of cool to see that kind of light bulb go off. And
I think that's the advantage of the snaring, because you are, for one thing, you're catching them when they're not thinking about anything else. Their guard's not up, they're whatever. There was a video that Matt Jones put out, and I remember he had run into his buddy who had a few animals in the truck, and he goes, I've just checked 80-some sets, and I have not caught an animal, and the other guy was just snaring.
Yeah.
And he was, so clearly they were moving to a point, but they weren't interested in bait or lure or committing, or the location was not the greatest that evening. I don't know specifically, but yeah, I mean, that is an advantage. And a lot of times on the raccoons, the combination of some body traps, some 220s with dog proofs is ideal.
Oh, it's killer. And I mean, it's funny because, at least in my mind, and maybe you guys have seen this too, but whenever you're trapping, like, I mean, we have a 90+ day season roundabout, and in past years, I've had traps out all 90 days, I mean, and you start seeing these progressions, everybody just assumes that these critters are running every night, and it's just not the case. I mean, you can start playing weather changes and moon change. And if you really want to pick out the best days, which is kind of what I've been doing this year, just because, I mean, you can up your percentages tenfold, by choosing those good days that the critters are actually going to move. And that's kind of what, like the snaring thing. So in Illinois, I have worked very hard over the years to try to get the best weatherproof set, because we end up with, our weather is just, it's so back and forth. It's never consistent to anything. It never just freezes up or it never just stays dry. You've always got this freeze and thaw. And even with the best, whatever you use for a cover on your footholds or bait and lure, I still think you have, in my mind, 15 to 20 days a season that your stuff's just not really working, at least not to the effect that you want it to. Where if we had a, cable restrainer snare season, those things are working regardless of weather.
The only time they don't is if you have a crazy bad ice storm.
Or like a huge dump of snow or something, So, I think, having that kind of tool in my toolbox, and learn, I think that would be super cool. So, snares, and I mean, I guess you could put the snares in kind of the blind set of the where I can't use them. But yeah, I mean, I do, and I catch a lot of coyotes every year in blind sets, especially this time of year where like we just had our firearm season, and maybe this is just me, but like those coyotes will hole up for a week after firearm season on all those wounded deer carcasses. They just do not move like they do other times of the year. And
you think of that as because of ready food, and then also all the human activity in the woods. You think that has any effect
I think
on
it pushes them around. I really do. Because to me, and I've had the opportunity to run a lot of trail cameras this year. And so I have seen, like right now, actually just yesterday whenever I checked them, all my pictures of coyotes for the day were in the deep timber.
Yeah.
I did not have one coyote on the edge of the field.
That is interesting.
And I kind of, and I've always noticed this, because that's one thing I've been kind of playing around too, is with the trail cameras this year, which is super educational to me, because it kind of puts into perspective what I've always thought over the years, but now you're actually seeing it happen, It's kind of like fishing, like you go to this lake for so many years and then you get the map of this lake and then you're like, I knew that was there. I didn't know why it was there or what it was, but and it's kind of the same way. So I've been using that tool quite a bit this year to my advantage. But yeah, I thought it was super interesting. 4 trail cameras out and every picture was a coyote in deep timber.
Yeah.
And I think that's because of activity. They're laid up and why would you go anywhere? If you're a coyote and you've got a couple of dead deer there,
right?
I mean, you don't need to get up and move around,
right?
So,
right.
And you'll see, and I mean, past years, I mean, I've been doing this long enough where you'll see the progression in trapping pick up now after our firearm season goes through. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, different things you catch on, So.
Well, probably we need to wrap this one up. You got any last things you want to say?
No, this was awesome. This was fun.
So we will do this again.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a part 2 at some point.
Yeah,
because we didn't even get into all this DIY and building a boat and fishing and all of that stuff. Yeah,
all the good stuff.
So we got a lot more.
No, this is super cool. I like this. This is so different than what I do normally.
Right.
Just to be able to just talk, So and not have a true agenda, I guess.
Yeah. Just have a conversation.
Just have a conversation. Yeah. No, this is super cool.
Discussion instead of interview.
Yeah.
That's how I like to put it. Well, laid back approach.
It's more natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So check us out next time when that rolls around. Check out all the links below. Coon Creek Outdoors. Subscribe, like that page. And he's got hoodies and t-shirts for sale on HoosierTrapperSupply.com through us. So I think that covers it.
That gets us started.
Yeah.
It's been fun.